What is the biggest game that each NFL team will play during the 2025 regular season? Today, we are going to break down what I think is going to be the biggest game for each team. The 2025 NFL schedule is out, so we're going to have some fun breaking this down. We're going to start with the Buffalo Bills and working through some of the strongest teams in the NFL towards all the way down towards who the weaker teams are. So immediately to start this thing off, Buffalo Bills. I think that their biggest game is going to be Week 12 Thursday Night Football at the Houston Texans. I'm considering Houston to be in the race to get the number one overall seed in the AFC. We know how important it is to be a team with the ability to get that one seed. So that way you can avoid the elite quarterbacks and having to play them twice. You're going to have to play a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Mahomes if you're a team. But if you get that one seed and we only have to face them one time, Buffalo's going to be right there. The division isn't that strong. Jets, I think New England's going to be a little bit better this season. See Miami being a worse team. But the Houston Texans on the road, a Thursday night game, this one being in November, like the stakes are starting to rise. And if the Bills want to be in the thick of it for the hunt for the one seed, they might just have to beat Houston and get a tiebreaker. Philadelphia Eagles, home versus the Lions, Week 11 on Sunday Night Football. This is going to be a short week after playing Green Bay on Monday Night Football. So we know how good the Detroit Lions were. Got the one seed in the NFC last year, and we know Philly off of that Super Bowl that we just talked about the one seed. So playing late in the year, playing at home against the Lions, a perfect opportunity to beat one of the stronger teams in the NFL in that conference, potentially to get a tiebreaker as far as seeding goes. This is going to be a massive game, and they can get a win against Detroit. It's going to bode incredibly well for the back half of their season, which includes 2 games against the Washington Commanders within their division. The Chiefs, look, they are not going to be as strong on the offensive line. We already know that this is going to be a unit that is going to be embattled throughout the 2025 season. After the Super Bowl did not go well, they lost Joe Thuney in the offseason, got the left tackle and Josh Simmons, but we know how much some of these rookies struggle early on. So I think the Chiefs home versus the Chargers, Week 15, coming off a Sunday Night Football game against the Houston Texans. I think that the Chiefs are going to be in an all-out war to be able to compete in that division. The Denver Broncos and the Chargers right on the doorstep. Think that the Chargers are going to be right there, potentially in a spot where they might have a better record than Kansas City going into this game. And Mahomes in the need to get a home playoff game, maybe even if they're still in that conversation for a first-round bye again, which has helped them so much in the AFC playoffs. Like, this is going to be massive. A tough Sunday night game against Houston. So at home against the Chargers, potentially the ability to position themselves fully in a spot to control that division. So the Baltimore Ravens, home versus the Bengals, Thanksgiving night, Week 13. We know this is going to be like the Sunday night game, but it's really on a Thursday night. But Baltimore in that black and blue AFC division, we know that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be better this year. Like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they're going to be dialed. They had such a strong finish to the end of last season. We saw how dangerous they were as an offense and just as a unit when they could actually come up with occasionally getting a stop. So them playing Cincinnati, I think that this could really tell a lot for the back stretch of the season, with this thing really starting to wind up after that game. So on Thanksgiving night, a massive game, finishing up that meal and then just getting ready for all-out war between these two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and Burrow and Lamar Jackson going at it. And who knows, this could end up be pivotal in terms of the race for the AFC North division, with Pittsburgh and Cleveland just being a lot softer than them. Detroit Lions, look, this might seem crazy, but I do not think that they're going to have the division wrapped up by Week 18. So I think at the Bears, Week 18 is going to be a game that they're going to have to win. No matter what Chicago does, we saw what they did beating the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Who saw that win coming when they're a 7-point underdog to take them out? I understand Love didn't play, but the Bears, whether or not they're competing at the end of the season for a playoff spot or a wild card in the division, who knows? They are going to be a tough team to beat. They're going to want that game. They're playing with Ben Johnson playing his former team in Detroit, and Detroit going to be in the thick of it for the 1 seed. Don't think they're going to have that locked up with the Rams and the Eagles, Commanders being in the thick of it, how tough the NFC North is. We know how good Green Bay, Minnesota are. What are the Bears going to become next year? So at Chicago, Week 18, think there's going to be maybe the division or a wild card or the number 1 seed spots on the line on week 18. The Houston Texans, look, Kansas City, Sunday night, week 14, in the December game, December 7th. They're going to be, I think, in the thick of it for the 1 seed this season. CJ Stroud is going to continue to progress, having another good year. They've won 2 playoff games total the last 2 seasons, and with that defense coming together, Will Anderson getting stronger, Stingley great in the secondary. They took the 2 wide receivers with Jayden Higgins, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. Like, this team is starting to put together the pieces to be a competitor, and the thing that usually holds you back is, we just talked about the NFC North being a tough division. Are you kidding me? The Titans, the Colts, the Jags, like, they could walk away and have this division wrapped up by early December, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. So if they're in a spot to be competing for the conference, is that going to be with the Kansas City Chiefs? We know how good they've been in years past, wrapping up and getting that 1 seed. So at Kansas City Sunday night in week 14, the Los Angeles Rams, I think, are going to be the strongest team in the NFC next year. So playing against another very strong team. We talked about the Eagles and Lions game. How about the Rams home against Detroit, December 14th? This is going to be a Fox. Potential ability for this to be flexed to a Sunday night game. This will likely be America's game of the week and one of the best games of the 2025 NFL season. We know all of the history. Matthew Stafford used to be with the Lions. Jared Goff used to be at the Rams, them squaring off when they matched up 2 years ago. It was a tight playoff game at Ford Field in Detroit last year to start the season that went to overtime. Detroit had like a 14-point lead, and the Rams were able to scrap back and had an opportunity to potentially to win that game. So a huge battle week 15 against the Lions. The Washington Commanders, my goodness. And they play the Philadelphia Eagles twice in the last 3 weeks of the year. This is the second of 4 divisional games that they will have to end the season. This is December 20th. You know what else is on that day? The college football playoff. This is going to be maybe the best football day that we have ever seen. Bears-Packers that day as well. But home against the Eagles week 16, they are going to be absolutely in the thick of it for this division. Both of them obviously are going to have tougher schedule. The Cowboys are always going to be tough for these teams to beat. The Giants are going to be easy wins, but playing against the rest of the NFC is not at all a light task to be able to take care of. So at home against the Eagles, will this wrap up the division? Might not. I would bet against it likely, but the ability to win that first of what's going to be a showdown as well in week 18 is pivotal. They got to get this home win, either put themselves over Philly, maybe pull it away, or getting right there within to make that week 18 matchup actually a lot more important. How about the Cincinnati Bengals? Like, this team is heading in the right direction, I think, after a pretty decent draft. Shamar Stewart, again, a full traits type of guy that they took, didn't have the production at Texas A&M, but offensively they shored up Higgins, got Jamar Chase on the long term. You have about $450 million spread between that quarterback and wide receiver duo. We'll see what Trey Hendrickson does. They need for him to stay there if they want to be very competitive for this season. Maybe for the long term, it's better if he ends up leaving because of what they can do with the cap space, as well as if they're able to trade him away. This is always a big game. They're tough to beat. Look, week 11, they're going to be coming off of a bye week. Like, this is a game that you might not think is that tough. Like, that's going to be that tough of a game for them to win. But listen, this is going to be really, really difficult. I mean, Pittsburgh is always a tough out, and we know how brutal that division can be. So later in the year, they're going to be playing the Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. 49ers week 10, home against the Rams, an afternoon game, of course, in November. San Francisco, what are we to make of the 49ers? One of the best teams in the NFC. We've known all of that in what the 49ers have been the last couple of seasons. And then last year, they just got old so fast. I mean, it hurts with the injuries. McCaffrey out the whole season for the most part. Brandon Ayuk with the bad injury. We saw Drake Greenlaw didn't play till the very end of the season. So instead of that supercar Lamborghini, they were basically an older 2009 Honda Civic, having to play with some of those older parts. And they lost key pieces in the offseason. Were able to get a whole lot. I mean, Michael Williams, they're going to need him to be great. If he is opposite of Nick Bosa, that's going to be huge. But playing the Rams at home week 10. If they're competitive within that division, then this is going to be a massive game that they're going to need to win at home. They cannot lose at home to the Rams. That would be detrimental. That would be horrible for the year. This is a team that has, again, some of the ability to be competitive with the likes of the NFC, but at this point, I think that San Francisco is going to have to put together a very strong first part of the year to make that a bigger game week 10. Green Bay. Look, they got the Eagles at home, Monday Night Football, week 10. This is a team that's playing that rematch of that game in Brazil earlier, the week 1 last year, and they played the Eagles again, lost to them in both occasions in the wild card round of the playoffs. Green Bay is going to want this one. They're going to need it. Who knows if they're in the conversation for the 1 seed or even just fighting for a wild card spot. They're going to need to win a November game at Philadelphia. Can they stop Saquon Barkley? That's the question. Can they limit the use of Jalen Hurts being able to get outside of the pocket, extend plays? I mean, my goodness, with Goddard and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they just have so many weapons, but it's also the defensive line that's going to be causing you all kinds of problems. They got Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, Jahad Campbell, adding that to the likes of Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. On that defense, it is just so tough to hurt Philly, but if they're able to get a win at home on a Monday Night Football game, that would be huge for Green Bay. How about the Los Angeles Chargers? Week 1, they're playing the Chiefs. I know it's week 1. How can that be the biggest game of the season? But how about the confidence boost? This would provide for the Chargers if they get a win against the Chiefs. This is supposed to be a home game for LA, but the game is in Brazil. Instead of a home game, not exactly going to have your typical home field advantage. SoFi Stadium gets packed with a whole bunch of other different fans, but beating the Chiefs week 1, having that edge of 1-0, being 1-0 on the season, the amount of juice that they would have for the rest of the year, the belief with Harbaugh, the run game with Hampton, and they're matching that with Najee Harris, with Ladd McConkey. Like, this offense is starting to come together. They got Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, brought back Khalil Mack. Like, this team is legit. Justin Herbert can replicate the success he had. They're going to have a better offense. The defense is all there. So week 1 against the Chiefs, I'm telling you, they get a win against Kansas City and Brazil. Look out. This team could be in the midst of taking that crown from the AFC West from the Kansas City Chiefs, and a huge threat to the AFC playoff picture. The Denver Broncos, again, the AFC West so strong, 3 playoff teams a season ago, much like the NFC North 3 playoff teams. The Chiefs at home, week 11, before the bye, and off of 10 days rest after they'd played Thursday night against the Raiders. So another divisional game right off the bat. We talked about the importance of beating the Chiefs, but imagine the Broncos could get a win against Kansas City after that horrible finish fiasco, the blocked kick against Kansas City, all those one-score wins, the amount of confidence for Denver for a team that's going to be scrapping again. Don't think Denver at all is going to be out of the race. Like, they're putting in a 9-8, 10-7 season to try and fight for a playoff spot. Don't think this is a year where they can win the division, but they've got one of the best defenses in football, and they are going to be extremely competitive. I mean, like, that secondary, Jahdae Barron and Pat Surtain, holy cow. The Minnesota Vikings, look, you're going to think this is crazy, but week 1, the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Think if they lose that game, that changes the entire scope of the year. If they lose to a team that was 1-5 against the division last year, lose it to the Bears, like, what are we doing? Week 1, that's their only division game until November. If they're 0-1 in the division, that puts a stale taste in their mouth for the earlier part of the year. Losing to the Bears, my goodness. Like, that's just not going to bode well for the earlier part of the year. I'm telling you, if they get a win on Monday night against Caleb Williams and the Bears and sit him down, J.J. McCarthy, that's what it's all about. Getting your rookie quarterback some confidence moving forward. And we're expecting McCarthy to have struggles, like Minnesota not to be a 13-4, 14-3 type of season this year. Realistically, looking like a step back in a 10-7 type year where they're competing for a wild card seems to be the most realistic path. We know how good that offense is. Aaron Jones and Hawkinson and Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and the defensive moves that they brought, Jonathan Allen from Washington, and they've got Hargrave coming in. Like, they are legit on that side. of the football and the other side on the offense, but the quarterback. So that week 1 game against the Bears, like, look out. That could be huge for Minnesota, and they could really struggle. If they end up losing that game, it'll be telling, like, oh, this team might not be what they were last year. That could be tough. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Bengals, week 7, Thursday night football, October 12th. Like, Pittsburgh, we don't know who their quarterback is yet. As of the recording of this, Aaron Rodgers is not there. We don't know who it's going to be. They brought in Will Howard, the 6th-rounder out of Ohio State, but he's going to need a bit of time to adjust the NFL, and a lot of people don't even think he could be a starting caliber quarterback in the National Football League. They traded away George Pickens. They've got DK Metcalf as that first wide receiver, which makes sense, that physical nature. He's as big and athletic as just about anybody in this league. That defense is primed to be able to be top 5 or 10 every single season. It's getting a little bit older, which is a concern, but still with Tomlin, they're going to be right there. People that say Pittsburgh is going to have a 5-12 year, I don't see it. When they've got a good defense and they can run the football, you can see them continuing to make strides. Like, losing Najee Harris, but they bring in the kid from Iowa, Caleb Johnson. It's like replacing, like, they are going to be just fine there. So at Cincinnati, if they could get a Thursday night win against the Bengals and Burrow, that would be huge. The Bears, look, you're gonna get this. Week 6, off a bye week at the Washington Commanders. They had their whole season turn into shambles in the stroke of a 2-play sequence. They give up the yards. Jayden is able to pick up 10 yards, which makes the Hail Mary easier. Stevenson comes in, it's tipped. Instead of being 5-2, the Bears go on to be 4-12 before they end up getting their next win. Think about that for a second. 4-2, and they're 4-12 because of that one flip of a play. You could hear the energy within that crowd of the Chicago Bears fans really getting into that game with the "Let's go Bears! Let's go Bears! Let's go Bears!" chants. Like, it was like 5-2. That was a scrappy type of win they could have. And then it's ripped from. And so at the Commanders, Monday Night Football, my goodness, revenge and faith. If they could win that game and get the monkey, that gorilla, off of their back and kind of silence a little bit of this Jayden Daniels is so much superior than Caleb Williams talk, that would be massive for Chicago for the scope of their whole season. Then it's at that point where you're like, yeah, Caleb's just as good as Jayden. They can make a run potentially to the postseason if they get a win in that game. Guarantee you that's how the media is going to paint that. But if you lose that game again, Caleb would be 0-2 against Jayden. He was taken higher above him. It'd be painted as that narrative. Even if the Bears end up having a great year, 10-6, even make the playoffs, they took Caleb instead of Jayden Daniels, and he will be 0-2 against him. And it doesn't matter how good of the season is. If they lose in the playoffs or don't make it, like, he's going to be compared to Jayden, and people are just going to continue to say that they took Jayden and it was a better move. In the Commanders getting him, and the Bears made a horrible move taking Caleb. That's how it'll be painted. So a massive game, week 6. The Falcons, Tampa Bay, week 1. Like, at home, they need it. They got Sunday Night Football at Minnesota, week 2. Like, if they lose this game to Tampa, they could easily be 0-2 playing Minnesota. It is tough to play at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota. And they got the Skull chance going, and that defense flying around to Brian Flores, getting those boys ready to go. That is tough to deal with. We've already talked about Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Van Ginkel, and that defense flying around. They've got Dallas Turner. Remember the first rounder from last year who wasn't even that big of a factor. That's how good the defensive front 7 was for Minnesota, that a top 2 or 3 edge rusher is reduced to a bit of a special teams player. So the Falcons, they could get that win week home, then things start to shift, and you're thinking, wow, like, we could beat Minnesota week 2. This is amazing how quickly the season can get away from you after losing a week 1 game and then a tough matchup in week 2. The Bucs at Detroit, week 7, Monday Night Football. This is going to be on October 20th. Look, Tampa Bay is going to be in the thick of this division race the whole year. They've got one of the best receiving corps in football with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Mecca Ibuka. They got Tez Johnson in the 7th round. They're going to have a pretty good defense, and frankly, they should have beaten the Washington Commanders. Not probably. They should have won that game if Baker doesn't fumble the football late in it. Like, they outplayed them for the majority of that game. So playing at Detroit week 7, this is huge for just the pace and the confidence of what they can have. Because Carolina, New Orleans, those teams are not very good. We know Atlanta, we just talked about how they're going to have their own trials and tribulations throughout the seasons, and riding with Michael Penix Jr. Like, it's going to be difficult for them to have a complete, just steady trajectory up. It's going to be up and down. So if they can get a win against Detroit, Tampa fans, after winning a playoff game against Philly in 2023 and then losing pretty clearly to Detroit, and then last year losing to Washington, 2 back-to-back playoff berths and disappointing end to those seasons, but an opportunity to get revenge on Detroit and put themselves firmly in that playoff race. How about the Dallas Cowboys? Week 1 at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is like the Thursday kickoff of this season, the Sunday night broadcast that they have for it. But this is massive. The Dallas Cowboys have to get this, because week 2, they're at home against the Giants, and then they play at the Chicago Bears. Like, they could be 2-1, 3-0 easily. But Philly, like, that's the gauntlet match of the juggernaut that they have to play and get rid of. It's just a tough game. Like, if they lose that game again, it's like, we know what the Dallas Cowboys are. I have an idea of what the Dallas Cowboys are. They're a team that's going to get beat by 10, 13 points by Philly. Going to have a big play. CeeDee Lamb probably goes for 105, and he's got a touchdown. Dak probably throws for 326, 2 or 3 touchdowns and a pick with a lot of yards coming in late. That's what I think of the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons maybe has a sack or 1.5. And they just get physically manhandled up front by the Eagles, with Saquon rushing for $130. A.J. Brown's got a touchdown and 93 yards, and Devontae Smith a touchdown and 85. Like, that's just what I think of what the game's going to be. But that the Cowboys could somehow pull that off and get a win, look out. Like, this could go a completely different direction. That's the kind of momentum that you have. And remember when Dallas had that big win against the Giants, how everyone was like going crazy. Dallas could be legit. And they had a big win on Sunday night at the beginning earlier in the seasons, pretty recently here. So the Dolphins at the Bills, week 3, Thursday night football. Look, weeks 4 and 5 are home versus the Jets and Panthers. Week 1 is at the Colts. Week 2 is home against New England. Like, they could be 4-1, but this Bills game is the tone. We know Miami has been that team that beats up on the little guys, and they can't beat the good teams. Like when they got beat by the Chiefs in that frigid game that season, they were either 11-6 or they were, I want to say 11-6 that year, and they might have been 10-1 against the losing record teams, and they were 1-5 against the better records. Like, first thing that comes to my mind is them getting beat by like Dallas in an afternoon game that season. So like, if they could beat the Buffalo Bills Thursday night game at Buffalo, like, it's okay, Miami, like, we'll give you some respect. But until they do that and they can pile some wins against quality opponents, I'm sorry, but Miami's just not taken fully seriously. Seattle, I mean, they had a heartbreaking loss against the Rams last year in overtime. I mean, that was rough. They play them week 11. They're at Los Angeles, November 16th. This is a huge matchup. Like, what are they going to be with Sam Darnold at quarterback? Is it going to be Sam? Like, I hope that he stays healthy, but this could be Jalen Milroe there. They've got Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba now. Like, they picked up Gray Zabel. This team has come together somewhat, but losing DK Metcalf, I just can't get over the impact of what that has for their team going forward. He was that weapon, that guy that you could considerably go to, and you think that Cooper Kupp replacing that, I just don't see the juice that Kupp has left. But again, if they want to be competitive, that's the type of game that they need to win week 11. The New York Jets at home versus Buffalo week 2. Like, the Jets start off with Pittsburgh at home. Two games at home. Look, they could be 2-0 if they beat Pittsburgh. No one's going to be shocked if they're able to come away with a win against Pittsburgh, even if it's with Aaron Rodgers. That could be a big storyline, but frankly, that's just not a team that you're very scared of. But Buffalo week 2, my goodness, this is like the Jets, what it used to be in New England. It's like they flipped the New England Patriots for the Buffalo Bills now, and that's a tough game. But if you could somehow beat Buffalo week 2, whether you lost to Pittsburgh or beat them, and the amount of confidence that could give Justin Fields and that team moving forward, that would be huge. The Panthers, look, they are a team that's steadily progressing. I liked what they did. They got Lathan Ransom in the secondary. They got Ted Tet McMillan, like I like that those moves. They were good in the draft. Bryce Young continuing to progress. I like Xavier Legette. Remember him from South Carolina, like the big body. He's got the speed burner ability with all those wide receivers in the 2024 draft. But at Green Bay, week 9, like they just got to be scrappy to that point. They're underdogs. But if they somehow could go into Lambeau and knock off the Packers, like, oh my goodness, everyone will count them out in that game. And to come up with a win would be insane, frankly. No one is going to expect it. And if they could somehow do it, it's like, okay, Bryce Young, here we go. Like, maybe not this year are they going to be a factor in the playoff picture, but going forward, like, this is the type of caliber game that Bryce Young can win. The New England Patriots, week 5 at Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. I'm going to say this right now. I think the Patriots can make the playoffs. Look at their schedule. They've got the Bills twice, the Bucs, and Baltimore. That's it. That's all that they play. They play 3 playoff teams, and they got Buffalo twice. If they could split against New England, if they could split against Buffalo, that game earlier in the year at Buffalo on Sunday night, Drake May, could you imagine the story around New England at that point, getting that win on Sunday Night Football? I think they could be 8-7 heading into week 17 and 18 before they play the Jets and the Dolphins to end the year. Like, be right there on the brink, like win 2 games and they make the playoffs. It's going to be tough again. It's going to be hard for Drake May to continue to progress and play well. He's going to have ups and downs, continuing to learn, but they got Will Campbell and they got Travion Henderson. This is going to be a different look. They're going to have more explosive plays. Drake's going to be protected a little bit better. Like, this is going to look different from New England, and it's just this pure schedule, like who they play. It just is not crazy to think that they can make the playoffs. The Jaguars, it's just survive. Could they be 4-4 before they play at Houston in week 10? That's really all it is. If you could be 4-4 and going into that game and get a win, 5-4, the rest of the schedule really starts to smooth out. Like, the Jags finish with Arizona, Tennessee, Indy, the Jets, Denver, Indy, Tennessee. Arizona, Tennessee, Indy, the Jets, Denver, Indy, Tennessee. Indy and Tennessee twice. You mix in there the Jets, Arizona, Denver is good, but if they could be 4-4 and beat Houston, be 5-4 to that stretch, be something like 5-6 or 6-5, like they could find themselves legit. I'm telling you right now, within that division, right there. The only thing is with Houston, I think Houston has the type of year where they could be competing for that first seed and for sure for that division. But if the Jags could again sneak away with that win, that impacts the confidence level of Houston, and there starts to be some rumors and stuff swirling around in that locker room and lack of confidence. That could be a pivotal win for them in disrupting the best team in that division's ego and their level of what they believe in. Cardinals, like, this has been a team that is just a good amount of talent. Marvin Harrison Jr., my goodness. Walter Nolan that they just brought in. They brought in Will Johnson the second round. He could have been a top 5, top 10 pick, and he slides to the second. And they pick up Denzel Burke and Cody Steinman later on in the draft. Jordan Birch. They went all defense. They've got Marvin. If they're able to scheme him open a little bit better, Arizona could be a lot more competitive. It's just in a very tough division. So at San Francisco, week 3. Look, they start the season with the Saints and Carolina. With the Saints in Carolina, they could be 2-0 at San Francisco, the divisional game they have to have, because weeks 4 through 6, they play Seattle, Tennessee, and Indy. Seattle, Tennessee, Indy, like Seattle's again that tough divisional opponent, but Tennessee and Indy, extremely winnable football games. But week 3 at San Francisco, you need that one. It's like you cannot lose to another divisional opponent. And even if they are 2-0, it's just that it's going to be tough going into that stretch of then playing Seattle. Like, they could be 2-2, but if you get that win, then the confidence is building. If you get that win to be 2-1 after San Francisco, that would be far better. If they could even be 3-0 after the start with the Saints in Carolina. The Colts, with Anthony Richardson, they drafted Riley Leonard. They got Tyler Warren, that weapon. He's going to help Anthony Richardson out so much. They got to ride Jonathan Taylor to stay on his back for the whole year. They got the Chargers week 7. They just got to tread water until that point. It's going to be tough, but stay afloat for this season and hang in there with that division, which is soft. We talked about Tennessee and Jacksonville. Like, if you can split against Houston, and then Tennessee, Jacksonville, obviously being weaker teams and a rookie quarterback, and Cam Ward for Tennessee. You can't look over that. So I really see it that they could get a win at the Chargers week 7, but that's a tough game. So they could get that win. Things start to look in the right area. The Raiders, they get the best 2 offensive players in the past 2 drafts. They get Brock Bowers, and then they get Ashton Genty for that Geno Smith caliber. Like, this is legit. The defense is solid, and the Raiders with a week 2 Monday Night Football game against the Chargers, divisional opponent. They start with the Pats, which isn't an easy game, but they could be 1-0 heading into the Chargers on Monday Night Football, divisional opponent coming to Vegas. Who knows? So the Vegas Raiders, obviously, in a top 2-3 division in football. That division is horrible to be a part of, especially when you don't have a very good quarterback with Herbert and Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes against the Chargers again. Well, that's why it's a huge game. The Saints against Tampa week 8 at home, a divisional opponent. This is sandwiched in between road games at Chicago and at the Rams. So this is really big to be able to get this win. I gotta tell you, I think that the Saints are maybe the worst team in football next year. I don't see them winning more than 4 or 5 games. It's even within that division, which isn't all that strong. That's why this game against Tampa could give them some momentum. Is it going to be Spencer Rattler? Is it Tyler Shuck as their starting quarterback? There's not a whole lot of weapons throughout that roster except for like Chris Olave. It's just with that team going forward, obviously Kamara, but he's getting a little bit older now. So New Orleans, I just don't have a whole lot of confidence. But if they can get a win against Tampa, the strongest team in that division, they can start to pile it together. The Browns love their draft. My goodness. They trade down from 2. I know Travis Hunter's that generational guy, but look, Mason Graham's pretty darn good and might be the 3rd best player in the draft altogether. They get him at pick number 5. They add a 2nd rounder, which they use for Quinshon Judkins at pick 36. They use pick number 33 on Carson Schwessinger to shore up that at linebacker position. Remember, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is going to be out for the 2025 season. They've got a future 1st-round pick. Love what the Browns did for their future with you've got these issues with Deshaun Watson not playing, and then they get potential starting level, and maybe could one day be the best player in the draft in Shedeur Sanders, or maybe be the worst and not even play, and he loses the battle to Dylan Gabriel or Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco. Like, who does the quarterback end up being? But for now, that draft looks great. So they've got week 6 at Pittsburgh, which is massive game to win because this is after they play Cincinnati, Baltimore, and 3 NFC North games come after that. Like, week 6 at Pittsburgh, they need a win because after it's Cincinnati, Baltimore, and 3 NFC North teams in Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota. Like, this could get away from Detroit. To get away from Detroit in the first 9 weeks of the season. I'm serious. Before week 10 or even we hit November, it could be brutal. So they need a win against Pittsburgh playing in the Steel City. The Giants at Washington, week 1, I'm telling you, they got to get a win early. The schedule is ridiculous. Like, they got to beat Washington. They need to find a way. Otherwise, like, I think the Giants go 4-13 next year. I'm serious. Like, they go 1-5 in division, maybe 0-6. Because they play at Dallas and then Kansas City on Sunday Night Football weeks 2 and 3. And then the Chargers. Like, where is the breather for that team? Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or Jackson Dart? Doesn't matter. I'm very concerned about their process of what they're going to do with Jackson Dart. Like, he could be a great quarterback in the NFL, a starting caliber guy for 10 years, but if he's not developed properly and they get rid of Schoen and Brian Dable, do they make it through the season with a terrible schedule? Don't know. Tennessee Titans, 1st overall pick, and Cam Ward, they need a win early on at the Texans week 4. They got to keep afloat because there's Arizona, there's the Raiders, there's the Patriots, and Indianapolis in weeks 5 through 8. So if they could stay afloat, the Titans could find themselves being 4-4. Remember that this team is improved. Cam Ward adds to that. There's not a whole lot of talent on this roster built around Cam, but this is building for the future. Like, Cam Ward, hopefully he just stays healthy, he's able to progress, not have like a 3-14 year and then be horrible. Like, hopefully they can get a couple wins against, like, split with the Jags, maybe split against the Colts. Houston's going to be tough for them to beat. But again, at the Texans week 4, if they could do it with Cam Ward, think about what that could do for that team. So that was going through the biggest game that each NFL team is going to play in the 2025 regular season. My goodness, are there huge matchups. I mean, there were a lot of tough ones to decide and pick through with this schedule. Like, each team is playing 2 or 3 absolutely huge games, and we'll see how this shapes up. I had a lot of big games earlier in the year because it's true, like, if you win those games, like weeks 5 or 6, 7, where it starts to put momentum either this way or that way for your team based off of some of those wins. So I appreciate it. Let me know in the comments whether you agree with the matchups that I found throughout the roster and whether these are truly the biggest games for the teams. Let me know where I'm right or wrong. Would love to engage and hear your feedback. Appreciate you watching all the way through. Stay tuned. We've got a whole bunch of more NFL and college football content coming at you very quickly here as we start heading towards the summer. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.